Today on CityCast Denver, Colorado author Peter Heller's newest novel, The Guide, takes place at an elite fishing resort in Crested Butte, but the characters soon discover that things are not quite as idyllic as they seem, and the whole story unfolds over the backdrop of a mysterious, unnamed pandemic. Our own Peyton Garcia loved reading The Guide. She sat down with the author last August to talk about his writing process and how the real-life COVID pandemic infiltrated his thriller. We're listening back to their conversation as part of our summer book week. Today is Thursday, July 14th. I'm Lizzie Goldsmith in for Bree Davies, and this is CityCast Denver.
Hi, Peter.
Good morning.
Welcome to CityCast Denver.
I'm so glad to be here. Yay.
So let's get right into it. You've got a new book out, The Guide. I read it. I loved it. I don't remember the last time I read a book in 2 sittings. I couldn't put it down. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about what the book's about?
Sure. Well, it begins with Jack from the river, my protagonist from the last book. He's a young ranch kid from western Colorado near Kremling. He's about 25 years old. He's suffered some big losses in his life. The loss of his mother when he was young and recently his best friend. And he takes a job as a fly fishing guide at a very elite luxury lodge near Crested Butte on the Taylor River, trying to sort of get his life, get reconnected to the things that give him joy. And he knows that staying working on the ranch with his dad for another, the next few months probably isn't a good idea. So he gets this job. It's so elite that many of the clients there, the fishing clients, use initials instead of last names because they're rich and famous. And he finds out that his first client is Allison Kay, who he thinks is probably a famous country singer, but he's not sure. And they begin to fish, and as the story unfolds, they discover things about this place that are unsettling and disturbing, and realize that stuff is not how it seemed in the beginning. And so that's how the story begins, and it gets thrilling fast.
It sure does, yeah. And it is post-COVID times. It is a novel that is based in the pandemic times that we're currently living through. So I want to ask, why did you do that? And how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I didn't mean to. I always start with the first line. I came up as a poet, and I'm most interested in the music and the language and how it sounds to me. And so I always begin with the first line, whose sound I love, and let the language carry me into the story. So I never really know what's going to happen. When I sit down to write a book, I have no clue. I don't know, who's going to be in it, where it is. So the first lines begin with Jack setting his pack down on a porch of a little cabin above this beautiful mountain stream. And as I began writing that, I thought, great, I'm a sucker for porches. I love a good porch, especially if it looks over a nice river. And, it was Jack, and I was so glad to see him because I was kind of worried about him. At the end of the last book, he was brokenhearted and alone. And so I thought, yeah, that's great. And I see that he's, within a few pages, has a job as a fly fishing guide. And I thought, that's great. I think that'll be good for him. Little did I know what was going to happen. And then, I started to see that, people were wearing masks in places and that there were lockdowns in Crested Butte nearby, and realized that this was, as I was writing, I realized that this was a world in which COVID variants were sweeping the country in waves, and the people that could afford to, the haves, the wealthy, were taking this as an opportunity to just isolate themselves in remote, beautiful places where they could do the stuff they love to do. And so, it just unfolded. I had no idea when I began it that it was going to be about COVID, that was going to be a central theme, but it became so, and it kind of gripped me.
Yeah, and I have to ask, did you go back and add real world details? Because I noticed in the book that you mentioned a super bug variant, and briefly you mentioned that it came from India, or Jack mentions that it came from India. Just like our Delta variant, is that just a coincidence, or were you able to go back and add real
No,
world
I
details?
mean, this was all edited, copy edited, and out, ready to be typeset before any of that happened. So it gives me goosebumps a little bit. I mean, my first book, The Dog Stars, was about a pandemic sweeping the world. The River, the last book, was about big fires in Canada. Long before that happened, I wrote that, years before, that happened. So I'm starting to get a little bit, I'm starting to be a little bit more, I'm thinking, be careful what you write about, right?
I know, yeah. You really have to be careful. You've got some sort of premonition ability.
I don't know.
It was very eerie. That was something that I really appreciated about the book is for a long time, you don't actually say the word coronavirus, but it was very eerie. So your books are set, a lot of them are set in Colorado, and you write very beautifully about our wilderness landscape. And what new aspects of Colorado and the Colorado wilderness were you trying to explore with this novel?
It's interesting. I mean, I sit in the coffee shop, if I'm writing there, or at home more lately with COVID. And I can transport to anywhere I want to go. And so, I mean, it's sort of like, it's my party, right? And so I usually end up transporting to places that I love. Why not? If I'm going to spend months writing a novel, let's be someplace that I'm really happy to be in. And so, here we are in Colorado. I mean, I've been living here since 1987. I came here pretty quickly after college. I had come out during one summer and done some kayaking, and it was a no-brainer. I mean, I grew up back east. I got all my education up in New England, and I love the country there. But after experiencing the rivers here, I mean, in New England, in northern New England, the runoff happens and the rivers swell in early April, and there's, snow on the banks and ice in the water, and, it's kind of grim. Experiencing the rivers out here, big water, hot summer, grazing elk, snow-capped peaks, it was sort of like a no-brainer to just, make a beeline for Colorado when I could, and I did. And I've been, in love with the country ever since. And so, I sit down to write what became the guide, and here I was just above this beautiful canyon outside of Crested Butte on the Taylor River. Why not? So it wasn't so much a matter of deliberate choice as my imagination drifting towards where it wanted to be.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
Aside from it being just a great thriller novel, which, I love, I could really relate to the writing and the beautiful passages about fishing. My fiance, he's a really big fly fisher, always has been. And over the last couple summers, he's been teaching me how to fish. And so I just really felt like those passages resonated even more with me because you wrote so beautifully about it. So have you always been a big fisher?
No, I was scared of it. I mean, listen, I read A River Runs Through It when I was 20, and it scared me. It was like, this is intimidating. Clearly fly fishing was an art, and it had, the aura of, some sort of magical, had this mystique, and, it just seemed so esoteric. And then I moved to Paonia, and my new friend Bobby Reed, who ran the gas station with his father and his son, said, Pete, a trout has a brain the size of, a pea. And, just throw the damn fly out there and have fun. And he showed me a basic cast, and he sent me up to the creek that became my touchstone, the place I fished, every season, every time of day and night, when I was brokenhearted, when I was jubilant, all through the last 30 years, I fished this one little canyon. And I began to just throw it out there and catch fish. And it sort of blew me away. It was like, wow, I'm catching fish on a fly. This is the coolest thing. I didn't have waders. I had, old sneakers and shorts, and I would fish into November, with wading, and my legs would just go completely numb, and I'd, ride my motorcycle back down the canyon in the dark. And I just fell in love with it. And I'm not a good fisherman at all. I mean, I know how to fish this one creek. I get out on big rivers and stuff, and I sort of have to ask everybody what to do. I'm not a great fisherman, but I just love it. And I love the connection. And I really, fishermen say this, but I don't care if I catch fish so much. I mean, it's great when I do, but you know how it is, when you're fishing, that the circle of awareness, you become hyper aware somehow of the wind, of the smells, of the light on the water, and because you have to catch fish. And I love that connection. I forget my name. I forget I'm a human being, and get sort of absorbed by the afternoon. I just love it.
Yeah, and that's exactly how your main character, Jack, describes fishing in the book. It's kind of a safe place that he goes to when he wants to forget everything else in the world. And half of your novel is a thriller, and half of it feels like an open love letter to fellow fishermen, something really special that only other fly fishermen can relate to.
Oh, now careful, because I mean, it's true, sure. But what's really, really gratifying for me is the emails that I get from people that, it's like, some woman in, like New Jersey who said, I have no interest in fly fishing. I've never fished at all. But I really love those descriptions, and it kind of makes me want to maybe try it. So that's what I'm shooting for, not to just sing to the choir.
Right. Well, yeah, you write about it so beautifully. I don't know who wouldn't want to try that. So your main character, Jack, he has this mantra, and he says, what could be better than this? And he says it to try and keep himself in a positive frame of mind. Where did that come from?
Well, Jack is a lot like me. I mean, you're not supposed to say this probably as a fiction. I mean, I don't know what's legal as a fiction writer to say or not say, but Jack, people ask when the Dog Stars came out, are you Hig? And I would say, no, he's 6'2" and he can cook, so I'm not Hig. But Jack is a lot like me. Not that I'm as tough as he is or anything like that, or can fish as well or anything. But his approach to the world, his wariness of people, the way he engages with beauty, with reading and poetry, the things that he doesn't like about people, that he sees in humanity that he doesn't like, the things that he loves, they're all sort of similar to the way I look and feel the world. And so if he says that, maybe I say it once in a while also.
Well, Peter, that's all I've got for you. The book was great, and I found myself, which I haven't done in a really long time, I found myself trying to walk down the stairs while still holding the book. I found myself missing my mouth as I was eating chips. It was very, very, very good, and I just have to say I loved it. I haven't been that enthralled by a book in so long. Thanks so much for joining me on CityCast Denver to talk a little bit about it.
Such a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell a friend about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Twitter @CityCastDenver. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another great reading recommendation to wrap up our summer book week. See you then.